And joining us right now, a man who knows what I'm preaching is the truth, Mike from around the world. Mike, how you doing tonight?
Am I there?
Yeah, you doing well? You doing well?
Doing well.
All right. You got to be busy. The Middle East is insane. I mean, the president's really busy. Does he ever sleep?
Nope. I don't think he does.
All right. Well, Mike, before we get into the Middle East here, I want to go to the sun first.
The world's falling apart. It's changing. Something is happening, and here we are.
Amen. So, Mike, the sun, we had 4 major solar flares. One was the largest this year, is X class 2.7. And then we started having blackouts in 5 different continents. There were blackouts.
Yeah.
And then there was even a 6-minute blackout from the towers in the Denver airport. 6 minutes?
Yeah, not to mention some of the damage to civilian equipment that took place over the last few days. It's been something in the last 2 days, I'll say. You know, Pastor Paul, the sun this time, and it wasn't quite direct, right?
Yeah, it wasn't. No.
Which makes it worse. When you have those high energy electrons, when they hit the atmospheres, they actually cause drag on the satellites. Remember Starlink?
Yes.
When Starlink went down, I believe that was a while back, and the reason why is because the density of the atmosphere increased, and Starlink's rockets did not have enough to overcome the drag.
Yeah, I remember that.
Well, radio waves, the same thing happens. Normal radio equipment, your Wi-Fi, computers, internet, all that good stuff, it still operates by radio waves, right?
Okay.
Even cell phones, it's still radio waves.
Yeah.
But when we have any type of incursion like that, it alters those radio waves. So it disrupts communications. Now, radio equipment has a compensator in there for normal atmospheric anomalies. In other words, they already compensate and have formulas to adjust for that radio wave during normal disruptions in the atmosphere. But when a CME or something like that goes off, it can't overcome it. And of course, with GPS, it can become catastrophic because GPS, the smallest disruption in those waves, make it is just not tenable for GPS to be adjusted. And, planes don't know where to go. They can be as much as 100 miles off. So GPS requires some pretty precise communications, radio waves untampered with or unaltered. And in this case, it went all the way down to the ground and underground. Some of the underground equipment was affected this time too. Yeah, so this was not normal.
So let me ask you, the Denver airport, when they said 20, it hit, there was 6 minutes outage. 20 pilots could not reach traffic control for 6 minutes.
Yep.
Is that the sun caused that? And is it?
Yeah, absolutely. That the equipment could not compensate for the distortions in the radio waves caused by the some of those charged particles coming in. Every time it hits equipment, it essentially builds up in the equipment, and it lets off a tiny lightning strike inside the equipment that can be very damaging. Most equipment, they have redundancy and backup, but it can become catastrophic or total failure. And this event was unusual.
Yeah.
Because it was not supposed to, things weren't supposed to be torn up like that.
Right.
Even I had problems. Come to find out after some investigation, radiation increase damaged some of the more heat sensitive components in some equipment that was sitting, that I had. So Pastor Paul, the infrastructure, it's not going to be able to take solar maximum. How can it take? So we're not even at solar maximum yet.
Right.
We're not.
Right.
And so when it happens, how can equipment take that? They have materials that they try to mitigate some of those electronic particles, but I don't see that happening. This one in particular penetrated everything, almost all defenses, and we have a lot more coming.
So let me ask you, Mike. I understand that there's a problem with our air traffic controllers besides the sun affecting it. I'm hearing that the infrastructure has just been abandoned in the nation's airline system. Is that true? I mean, is that?
Yeah, you know what? I think that when you're dealing, air traffic control is very precise business, right? It's a very precise business. When you have people who are not listening to their employees, you have other folks who are only concerned about common things, and they underrate the viability of such an operation. Well, it's going to fall apart. The equipment was patched together. Some of the requests for new equipment that came from companies was not top notch, and everybody, of course, wants everything at a cheap price. You can't do that with air traffic control, right?
No,
it should have been subsidized. It was not it should have been subsidized in a big way, because that's a critical piece of infrastructure.
Yes.
But they didn't do that. It was treated like a standard job. It's not a standard job. It's not fast food. So you have to really invest some money into it. They didn't do that. And finally, it fell apart, and it's falling apart. And not to mention, people aren't spending money. That's why car dealers are failing right now. Right, kind of like Jeep is closing certain factories, big factories. They're closing because nobody's buying cars.
They're sitting back and waiting to see what's going to happen.
Well, they can't trust the market.
Yeah. I mean, you're right. The market has been the media has pounded on this. I know the market here recently has made a nice recovery, or at least on its way back. It's not there yet. Part of that is, I guess, the tariff is working. We're starting to see deals being signed and deals coming into play, but people are still going to wait until they see for sure. Well, when people wait, the market, it's harder for things to come back, right? So it's the chicken and the egg here.
It is. Yeah, it is. As precisely what's happening. It's not that anything is collapsing, right? No. That's not what's happening. It's just that people aren't buying, right? People aren't buying things.
Exactly.
And it's causing a ripple, a big ripple. Anyway, this solar storm, these last set of solar winds that we've had, plus some of the discharges, they are not normal. They're not normal. Nothing penetrates where it's supposed to penetrate that far. 5 countries affected by something so common, I guess you could say.
Yeah. I mean,
that shouldn't have happened.
So does that mean there's more to this? Are these solar flares more explosive?
Absolutely, there's more to it.
Or is our magnetosphere weaker and thinner?
Well, we have that too. You're dealing with the exosphere, thermosphere, mesosphere, stratosphere, troposphere, all these spheres. And we do have a weakening event happening on the Earth. They're not as robust as they used to be. They're not. And so the density in the exosphere and thermosphere is increasing. Some of the craft that are up there are highly affected. The Air Force lost equipment, from this last one.
Planes are crashing.
And it's because essentially we have a change in our magnetic field around the Earth. It's fluctuating. There are holes forming and closing. So it's really getting bad. We don't have the protection we once had. We simply don't.
Well, what about CERN?
So more radiation is going to come through.
I know CERN's got to be part of this. I mean, I know you've talked about it. I know BP Earthwatch has talked about it. CERN, they've been running it pretty strong. I mean,
I'll tell you a small story among other things they do, right?
Okay.
If all these scientists have an understanding that if you don't have magnetic fielding, you're dead, you're gone, right? Even right now, if something happened to the magnetic field of the Earth, we're dead. All of us topside are dead. with no CMEs, right? With no solar flares, we're dead. We're dead. The atmosphere is sustaining life on this planet. And without protection of the atmosphere, we're dead.
Okay.
Without the magnetosphere, we're dead. CERN has developed the strongest magnets on the Earth.
Wow.
So think about something. Among other things they do, they have perfected the magnets, right?
Okay.
When they cut this thing on, it does affect the magnetic field of the Earth. CERN does, right?
Okay.
So if you have developed the strongest magnets on the Earth, then you can protect any city you so desire, right? You could set these things up over New York City. If the magnetic fielding of the Earth collapsed, you could spread out the shielding over New York
You
City,
can direct,
and those in New York could survive.
So you can direct to affect what part of the area of the Earth you want to protect and what part you don't?
They can simply set them up. Sure. They can set them up, and there you go. They're not hard to set up. The technology, right? The technology was that breakthrough. That was a milestone. Now, there's one more scenario, something that kind of keeps me up at night, you could say. I pray a lot about it. Everybody has been noticing some odd geological activity. We can't deny it. You know,
Yeah, that's
volcanoes are waking up all over the
Right.
place. Threats are everywhere. The weather is, we're having floods and fires
Yes.
all throughout the USA and other places. If we underwent, the USA underwent some catastrophic geological event, which, you know, is well within the realm of possibilities at this point, the USA would effectively be knocked out of the picture. And then the rest of the world would not hesitate to take advantage of that, right?
Yeah, I know.
They wouldn't do it. And so this is something else, because look at some of the earthquakes and some of the volcanic activity we've been having, and some of the we had plate movement not more than 5-6 days ago. For the first time, it was caught on video, and which is not good. We have a threat of a volcano which could absolutely affect the totality of California, right? Which would also wake up a line of ancient volcanoes, which are slowly waking up. So I think in the near term, the USA is going to undergo some pretty catastrophic things. Right.
I mean, that would change everything if we had.
It would.
If Mount Spur blew up and Anchorage went under,
it would.
Or if the Cascadia subduction zone,
that's right,
massive quake that killed 4 million people, or like you said, or some other, the New Madrid all of a sudden after 200 years.
It could be that. It could be under New York. It could be, New York. There's a number of things that could happen. We already know that with these fires are about to become devastating. We know that the way the weather is patterned right now, the infrastructure of the USA cannot take too much more of it. Right, ground saturation is horrific. The ground is hardened underneath in some of these dry areas, and then when rain hits it, it just floods all over the place. Right, flood damage is going to be real bad. I know that we're about to have a war event too that will change the face of many things. The enemies will take full advantage of that situation. They're going to take full advantage of it. Also, we know at some point that something so bad happens on the earth that everybody changes their tactics, right?
Yep.
And we have, issues from the heavens that they have essentially cut off. They're not, well, let's just say people don't have access like they used to, right? To modeling equipment of what's happening in the atmosphere or in space.
They've been shutting. They've been shutting certain instruments down.
We are in the season right now where we're going to be affected greatly. They just had an electromagnetic scan of our solar system. It's a video scan that took place over, I believe, 2 months. Anyway, the same electromagnetic activity that's taking place on Jupiter is mirrored by the sun. I mean, it's happening at the exact same time between Jupiter and the sun, which nobody has seen before, right?
That
So
means there's
still,
a third object then. There's something.
yeah, they're going over this data, but Pastor, it's impactful. It's very impactful. The nature of Jupiter itself has been deeply defined as of late. It is not like people thought it was. In fact, Jupiter is not like people thought it was. So a lot of people are going to have to get used to the different dynamics of the planets not being what we were taught, but being something totally different, which means we got it wrong. Okay, we got it wrong.
Okay.
But all these things are beginning to alter.
Gil Brazard, I was talking to him, and he's going to give us an update on Planet X. Mike, I know this binary system is affecting everything. I mean, there's no question. Now you're saying it's even affecting our sun and Jupiter, both very similar. So the rest of the planets are caught in the fray, including planet Earth. We can find the signs of this in the Bible of the sun heating us and scorching men, or other straight line winds and all these other things that we see happening. You've been talking about for years. Are you anticipating? And you've mentioned the void, and I know you've talked about the incoming asteroid meteorite belt or something. The clouds or two clouds.
Yep.
So I'd like to get all that kind of information brought up to speed or up to. Do you think in the next period of time, short period of time, maybe 5, 10 years max, let's just say 5. Or let's just say the rest of this year, because Gil Brazard is concerned about 2025. I mean, he can't even hardly get out of that one. Do you see some type of major change in our planet or our solar system that's going to absolutely be a game changer? Is there something about to happen that is going to shock? Or do we already know what's going to come? Or is that why they're building underground cities? Is there already preparation for something major to happen?
Oh, absolutely. You just said it. Is there preparation for something major? Yes. Yes. Back in 2002, crops were starting to wilt too fast. I'm not sure if people can remember that.
So you're saying that they genetically altered the food to handle radiation?
To be more robust, right? That's why you can take a piece of bread right now and it won't mold the same way other bread did, right? It won't.
I know that.
You can throw it in the oven and you can, they probably have not refined the process, but you can see that it has these long strands in the bread, right? That's not part of the bread.
That's not wheat. That's not
so
wheat.
all these things they've been doing. The corn, the popcorn itself feels like it'll cut your throat going down because it's made with that GMO corn. All this stuff is resilient, right? Yeah. The growth hormones would be necessary due to the absence of sunlight. Think about that, because the sun is responsible for manufacturing vitamin D and some other things in our bodies.
Yes.
That's essential to growth. You'd have to replace all of that if you went underground, which means growth hormones would have to be in all the foods. To sustain a natural society.
Well, my brother-in-law is a landscaping. He's had a landscaping company for quite a long time. He's a great landscaper. And he was down here in the Villages the other day. Him and his wife came down, my wife's sister. We were out on a golf cart. We're actually just riding around. He was looking at the really nice landscaping, just admiring it, really liked it. And then he said to me, he said, "You see these bushes right here?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, they spray them with something so they'll slow the growth. That way they don't have to keep coming and clean and purging them. I said, "What?" Yeah. He said, "We can spray stuff on these bushes and on these trees and we can slow them down, or we can spray stuff on them and make them grow like crazy."
Yep.
We can go either way we need to go based on the environment we're in. So he goes, so so when you said that you have to grow things, is so that with artificial light, you got to make the food has to be able to function and prosper and yield under artificial light. There's a movie out right now, or there's a TV series called Paradise, where they build an underground city for 25,000 people to survive the apocalypse. And they had artificial sun. They have an artificial sun, and there's crops and there's whatever. But this wasn't done overnight. This was like a 20-year plan.
Yeah.
Is this
It's
happening right now?
ironic, isn't it?
Yeah.
That they would write a movie where the smartest tech innovative person in the world would be responsible for designing those
Yes.
cities
And the
for the
only people,
president.
and the only people,
Ironic, isn't it?
the only people that got to go, you had to get a ticket. You had to be pretty special. You're not going.
Yeah.
You had to be really special.
Right.
You have to have
A
something to
lot.
offer.
That's right. Also, if that were going to happen, they would start pulling the good people, right?
Yes,
Down in these
absolutely.
places. Left up top would be the wannabes.
Yes.
The one
I
people
guess
who
I'd be,
always wanted a certain position, right? But
yeah.
never could get it until because look at some of the candidates in Washington. Just think about something. In a normal scenario, nobody would select these people. I'm just being serious.
No.
They
Yeah,
wouldn't,
you're exactly right. No way.
due to a lack of competence, folks. All right, people have to select what's left over. So what I'm saying is that these folks that are being selected are not what you would normally select. You wouldn't even see them in the runnings, but because nobody is left to run, that's what we get.
They're giving us the left, the
And I'm
hand-me-downs.
not being funny
No,
about
I know
it.
you're saying they're leaving.
I'm just saying it's unreal for a reason, because most of the folks who actually, they knew things, they're gone.
Yeah.
They're gone.
Yeah. No wonder our infrastructure is having trouble. Maybe no wonder. So no wonder they're relying on AI to try to.
Well, if something's about to happen, they're not going to put all the money topside. They're not going to do that. They're going to put all the money where they have to survive. So if all this is real, Pastor Paul, then look for you have to look for major changes up top. And if you start to see them,
we're seeing them.
Then when humanity starts changing mentally, we talked about this on your show.
Yes,
one of the first times I met you.
Yes.
And I was saying that people would begin to change mentally.
Yes.
Children will they hold their parents hostage. In other words, instead of the parent telling the child what they're going to eat, the parent would ask the child,
what do you want?
What the child demands to eat. And then the child would kick the parent out of the room or something like that, right? So this is what we have right now. The whole mentality of the family unit, humanity itself is changing.
It's messed up. It's really messed up bad.
But it's a predictable thing. It's what happens when certain guidelines and certain influential institutions of say like truth are taken out of the way, right? When people are abandoned, they're left to fend for themselves, and all sorts of things begin to manifest. Then hostilities rise with the breakdown of the atmosphere. The atmosphere and the human brain are intimately tied together. If it goes, well, people are not going to think right. They're going to become quite violent, quite irritated, agitated. That's when the swelling in the body starts, and nobody can understand why. They call them heavy walkers. I saw that in a text written a long time ago, when the destroyer came around the first time, or whatever time it was.
Heavy walkers.
That people had a hard time walking because of swelling. Everybody started swelling up. Their joints were hurt. Everybody's joints were hurting, right? The kids were emotionally disconnected. That sounds like it says most kids that were being born in those days were emotionally disconnected, and they did not like noise.
Wow.
Think of it. So what does that remind you of? That reminds me of autism.
Autism, exactly.
But they're not going to call it autism back in the ancient days. When you start looking into those things and the conditions of the people, you begin to see a mirror of what we have right now.
Wow. Well, we're going to keep our eyes open. That's why we're watching. And that's why we're watching on the wall is the things that are happening. Certainly the changes are happening, and they're happening rapidly and fast. And the only way you're going to get through this, folks, is with Christ. There's no other way around that. You have to have Christ. No matter what, you have to have Jesus Christ in your life, being led by the Holy Spirit and following the Word of God to be able to sustain you through these times that we're experiencing, and it's going to get worse. It is. And Mike, Thank you so much for giving us a tremendous information here. I think it's very, very important. I really do, that people understand that it's not going to be like it always has been. You need to know it is changing. Things are rapidly accelerating in these end times. So I appreciate you. Appreciate you coming on tonight.
It's always an honor, Pastor Paul.
The honor's mine. Truly is. Thank you, brother.
All right. God bless.
God bless. Mike for On the World, folks.